You can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, you're watching State of the Nation tonight with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News. On tonight's show, the shocking state of Britain's broken National Health Service is laid bare, with staff reporting, get this, infestations of rats and cockroaches in hospitals across the UK. As we continue to spend billions of pounds on foreign aid and asylum seekers, is it time to put the NHS first? Also, is sectarianism on the rise? We'll be looking at that tonight, with single-issue politics becoming increasingly prevalent in Britain and several Labour MPs rallying for a new airport in Pakistan. National security and counter-terrorism expert Anthony Gleeson joins us to reveal more. Plus, earlier today, an anti-abortion campaigner was convicted of breaching a buffer zone outside an abortion clinic, despite having gained support from the US State Department. Fellow campaigner Isabel Vaughan-Spruce, who was in court for that landmark ruling today, joins us live tonight. And Britain's wokest council have excelled themselves as they push staff to complete a white privilege test. If you've never been stopped and searched, if English is your first language, you could apparently be part of the problem. We'll be looking at that test tonight. And that's State of the Nation tonight with me, Matt Goodwin, starts right now. Now, I'll also be joined tonight by my top panel, former Reform UK spokesman Gawain Towler and former advisor to the Labour Party and Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. As ever, let me know your views, gbnews.com/yoursay. You can join me on X at GoodwinMJ or, of course, at GB News. Now it's time for the News Bulletin with Sophia Wensler.
Matt, thank you. It's just gone 8 o'clock. These are your headlines. The UK's leading stock market suffered its worst daily drop in more than 5 years in the wake of Donald Trump's tariffs. The FTSE 100 closed at 4.95% down, a level not seen since the COVID pandemic in March of 2020. It comes as US markets have tumbled again, as US President said China played it wrong by retaliating to his tariffs. The US markets opened sharply lower after Beijing slapped a 34% tariff on all US imports. Moments before the markets opened, Trump said China panicked and his policies would never change. Meanwhile, Mr. Trump has extended the deadline for the sale of TikTok for 75 days, saying tremendous progress has been made, but more work needs to be done to secure approvals. Trump added that he looked forward to working with TikTok and China to close the deal and that he did not want the app to go dark. In other news now, comedian and actor Russell Brand has been charged with rape and 4 other sexual offences following a Met Police investigation. The charges relate to 4 women with alleged incidents spanning from 1999 to 2005 in Bournemouth and Westminster. They include rape, oral rape, indecent assault and 2 counts of sexual assault. 50-year-old Brand will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on the 2nd of May. The investigation began after media reports last year and remain ongoing. Meanwhile, in the last few hours, Brand has posted a video on X saying, "What I never was a rapist. I'm never engaged in non-consensual activity." Now, Buckingham Palace has said the King was not aware of Prince Andrew's alleged links to a Chinese spy. It comes after a new document claims that the King was aware of an investment fund in which Yang Tengbo, an alleged spy, was directly involved. Tengbo was excluded from the UK on national security grounds by the then Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, in March of 2023. A Buckingham Palace spokesperson has responded, saying while His Majesty met with the Duke and his advisor to hear out proposals for the independent funding over the past year, the individual known as H6 was not mentioned at any time or in any way as part of these discussions. And an anti-abortion activist at the centre of a US free speech row has been found guilty of breaching a buffer zone outside a Bournemouth abortion clinic. Livia Tosici-Bolt was sentenced to a 2-year conditional discharge after breaking a public spaces protection order on 2 occasions. The 64-year-old held a sign saying, "Here to talk if you want," near the clinic in March of last year. Her case drew international attention, with the US State Department urging the UK to protect free expression. But a judge said Tosici-Bolt failed to recognise the distress her actions could cause to women using the clinic. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Matt.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to State of the Nation Tonight with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News. Now, I don't know if you've seen this news yet today, but if you have, it may well have left you pretty shocked, pretty outraged and pretty appalled, just as it did to me. A survey of nearly 9,000 NHS staff has revealed that crumbling hospitals are being plagued by rats, cockroaches and sewage leaks, with suggestions that vermin may be thriving due to the NHS's neglected infrastructure. Equally shockingly, 17% of NHS staff in this survey admitted that they did not consider their workplace to be safe. Nearly 1 in 5 NHS staff did not consider their workplace to be safe. Helga Pyle, the Unison Union's head of health, said the survey paints a worrying picture of an NHS system that is falling apart at the seams and in need of a serious overhaul. No one should be dodging rats, stepping over sewage or watching out for falling ceiling tiles in NHS buildings. British hospitals seem to be quite literally crumbling around us, with often elderly and vulnerable patients being left abandoned in hospital corridors as a matter of routine. In February, doctors across the NHS admitted that almost 80% of them had been forced to administer what they call corridor care. Can we not afford to fix this stain on British society? That's the question I want to ask. Well, probably not, and it doesn't take an economist to spot why. As a country, we are still paying over £13 billion every year in foreign aid alone. We've just pledged another £33 million over the last week to secure yet more prosecutions on the smuggling routes to the French coast, with Labour's promise to smash the gangs looking increasingly hollow. So far, crossings this year are over 6,600. That's up 40% on the same time last year. There's almost no evidence that this money is making a difference. And in January, it was revealed that housing asylum seekers in hotels, a practice that continues under Labour, is costing a staggering £8 million every day. Beyond the eye-watering figures that I'm just sharing with you, there's a much more fundamental point here, and it's a point about fairness. Why should British hospitals, British patients be forced into humiliating corridor care in hospitals, overrun with rats, cockroaches and sewage leaks? Why shouldn't they feel angry when they see so much money being made available for foreign or imported political problems that we repeatedly fail to fix? Fairness is a cornerstone of British values and of British society. Fair play is integral to our national culture. But unfortunately, this Labour government, alongside the Tories before them, let's be honest, seem to have missed the memo. As ever, let me know your views at gbnews.com/yoursay. Of course, meet me on X at GoodwinMJ or tweet us at GBNews. With me now is my panel, former Reform UK spokesperson Gawain Towler and former advisor to the Labour Party and Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. James, if I can come to you, Labour in power, presiding over the NHS, Wes Streeting, Health Minister. There is something about the story, and the reason I wanted to pick it up, that really strikes at the heart of this notion of unfairness, that we literally have an NHS that is being now infested with rats, with cockroaches, patients being treated on corridors, but yet we're sending all of this money overseas. We're spending all of this money on an asylum system that isn't working. Many Brits are saying, OK, this isn't really adding up.
What you're saying also isn't quite adding up. You're taking what is you're completely right, that it is shameful that the NHS is in many ways crumbling and the cockroaches, rats, patients not getting proper care. And you're right to say that this is an issue of this government, it's an issue of the previous government. I'd actually bring it all the way back. There was a lot of underfunding of the NHS under Major and Thatcher. Then under Blair and Brown, funding went up, but it was PFI, so it was very expensive because rather than the public doing it, it got farmed out to private companies who then had to be paid a high level of interest each year, and we're still paying off a lot of that. Then Cameron, Osborne and the successor ones decided that it was going to be economically sensible. It was absolutely illiterate to have cuts and to squeeze on NHS. And all the whole time, throughout this whole period, we've had part privatisation, parcelling out of services and undermining the whole thing. In the same time, since 2010, the wealth of billionaires has tripled. That's a really very big figure. The amount of money that we send overseas in relative comparison is pretty small. So if you're saying we've got our priorities on...
£13 billion.
I'd said in comparison is pretty small. So there are very clearly the wrong priorities that successive governments have all had. And health policies have had... There's been a thread running through all of them that's been quite similar. A move more towards privatisation, a move more towards underfunding and trying to hive out bits of the private sector. And it doesn't work. I mean, what we do need, and it is now going to be very expensive, because everybody knows, like, if you've built something in your house and then you've let it rot, it's much more expensive to deal with than if you looked after it while it was there. And we're going to have to go in with, unfortunately, quite a lot of money to rebuild a lot of these things, because people shouldn't be having care in crumbling hospitals, surgery in corridors and the rest of it.
Sure, I think everyone can agree on that. Gawain, where do we get the money from?
Frankly, it's going to be very, very hard. The NHS budget is already vast, and you're not going to be able to magic this up. I mean, with the much vaunted 22 billion black hole, with the vast sums of money being spent on net zero, with all sorts of spending commitments already in place, and when you see things like the employers' NIC contributions, that's going to hit the NHS quite hard, and there's a whole series of extra costs already. But it does remind me, do you remember we had almost exactly the same story about schools a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
All schools have crumbled, and rats infested. It's almost exactly the same story. And I think part of the problem, and this is almost an aesthetic problem, is that many of these hospitals, these new hospitals, were built badly under PFI. Yeah. They were built very badly. The windows are cracked. The concrete is falling apart. Because under the PFI, which was a Labour, and it was daft, it was ridiculous, and it shouldn't have been done like that. And they are still, the building may be falling down, they're still paying the massive interest on a building that's collapsing, and therefore you have that problem. I think.
Well, why don't we do a pause on something like foreign aid? Why don't we say we're going to do a 5-year freeze?
I would agree with you on the foreign aid stuff.
The 50 billion that we would have spent overseas, we're going to spend that on fixing our hospitals.
That won't touch the sides. That's the problem. It's all very well, but it won't touch the sites. It really won't, because of the interest, because of the contracts, because of things of this sort. And also, you have the problem where the NHS is now being used. More people seem to be ill for more things than ever have been. We've got a vast increase of people who are either ill or claiming to be ill. We've seen on the welfare stories recently the vast increase of that, and sickness and mental health and so on and so forth. So we are having much more demand for limited supply, and that's a problem.
Yeah, James Schneider. I'll give you 3 areas where we could save money. One is reducing the amount of outsourcing to private healthcare within the NHS, and running alongside that is reducing the number of managers who manage those procurement processes. The number of managers in the NHS has risen dramatically in comparison to frontline staff.
Well, including diversity, equality and inclusion managers, James.
Sure, of course.
We could save millions by reading out some of those.
It's a small amount, but I agree we shouldn't have so many of these managers. The second is the NHS has been broken up into 42 competing trusts, which is a nonsense. The NHS works because it has economies of scale and it can bulk buy things. So we should go back to having a genuinely national system, not 42 supposedly competing trusts. The third is we should have a national, publicly owned medicines company that can produce generic drugs at the cheapest possible price that we can to reduce the cost of drugs in the NHS. And if you want to look at where we can get money from for things in general, look at who has them. Look has been doing well since in the last, let's say, 15 years. It's not ordinary people. It's not people who use the NHS. It's not people who, generally speaking, work in the NHS. But as I said before, the wealth of billionaires has tripled in that time. There is an enormous amount of wealth stored up in financial assets that could be used as a cash injection, as investment, because we need to invest again in our buildings.
If you launch into the rich in that way, they leave. And there's no money. They're gone.
Gawain, wealthy people in this country are wealthy because they own a lot of assets that are in this country. A person can leave the country. Yeah. The assets are here. So let's say I have £100 million in British assets. I own a factory. I own houses. I own high streets. Okay. I can sell those, right? I can sell those. Someone else buys them. The high street stays here, the shops stay here.
The high street is a mess, as you know. If you're selling the company, if you're selling the business, then the employment drops.
The assets are here, they leave, and they can be charged an exit tax. I'm afraid it's a fantasy. The idea
it is not a fantasy. Look what happened in Norway.
The idea that assets can just be spirited out of the country and there is nothing we can do about them is nonsense. It's nonsense. But it is absurd that someone, because they don't want to pay tax, is allowed to liquidate their assets and not pay any tax for it.
If you're suggesting this sort of penal taxation on rich, I'm saying penal. Penal taxation on. Hold on. I let you. If you are hitting the rich and people with assets with that sort of level of taxation that you're proposing, exit taxes and this, that, and the other, who's ever going to invest in this country? Who's ever going to bring money in? It doesn't. The global market doesn't work like that. If you basically say, Fortress Britain, you don't want to be rich, then there'll be no taxation to pay for the NHS, to pay for our services.
What you're saying is completely ludicrous and is special pleading for people.
No, it's not. It's special pleading for the British economy.
It's absolutely not.
Millionaires are leaving at record rates at the moment.
And they're not being taxed in the way that I'm calling for. These two things are separate. Now,
so you punish them at home and then punish them for leaving.
Why is it that the majority in a recent poll of millionaires in this country support the very policy that I'm proposing, which is a 2% annual wealth tax on assets over £10 million. That means you have more than £10 million, you pay 2% a year.
On top of all the other tax you're paying.
Now, I'm sorry, as I said before, billionaires' wealth has tripled since 2010. It's not like they're short of cash. They're not short of any money. Do you know what is short of money? Your hospital, your GP surgery.
The amount of money going...
The roads have potholes in them. I'm sorry. Anybody can see this. Anybody can see. Like, over here, there are people who have... There are not very many of them, and they have loads and loads and loads of money, and they're getting more and more and more money every year, and everyone else is having a difficult time. And people look at that and go, there must be an equation where some of this can come over here. But if you say that my particular policy is not the right one, come up with another one.
Well, I think initially the needs required, the requirements of the state seem to be increasing every year. The demands on social care, on welfare, on everything. If you start to hit the rich and the investors and things of this sort, you stop people investing. If you've got, and it all ties in, nothing is discrete. The problems with the NHS is not discrete from the costs of net zero, because it's all government. And if you punish people for success and you've punished people for doing things of this sort, no, but you are. Right, you do that, people will leave, and people will not come and invest in this country. If you do that, you strip investment out of the country, and guess what? There's less money for everybody, including the NHS, including the services and everything else you want. So you've got, it's a balance. You can't just attack that lot without having an impact. You think it's impact-free.
Well, one thing's for certain, the debate is going to continue without any question of a doubt. Now, after the break, is sectarianism on the rise in Britain, with single-issue politics becoming increasingly prevalent in Britain, including recent elections, as we've all seen, and several Labour MPs rallying for a new airport, not at Heathrow, but Pakistan. National security and counter-terrorism expert Anthony Gleeson will be joining us after the break to reveal more and what's behind this worrying trend. See you in a couple of minutes.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
With the attrition rate, particularly during the Battle of Britain, inexperienced pilots would be shot down and therefore more likely to be killed. It's sad to hear him speak about the breakfast table in the morning with empty spaces of where pilots had sat before. But yes, he did speak about how, you know, it was that knowledge and the skills learned in air combat that kept him alive.
Yes, you touched upon something very important there. I mean, we think of these people's bravery, but the trauma that they must have suffered by losing friends.
He didn't speak about it very much. He was reclusive almost, and so much so that I think in 2018, when a list of the surviving Battle of Britain pilots was produced, he was not on that list. And exactly, his son was very quick on getting that amended. His son spoke about Paddy not looking back. He wouldn't talk about the war, as so many of that generation didn't do.
They were absolutely remarkable. Have you any idea how it was that we came up with such a group of heroes at that time? How could that be?
Britain was quite simply alone, certainly in Europe. I mean, granted, we had the Empire at the time, and the Commonwealth provided so many pilots. I mean, Paddy Hemingway himself was born in Dublin, died in Dublin on St Patrick's Day, but there were, as we all know, plenty of contributors to the effort. The bombing campaign over Britain in the summer of 1940 was existential for us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation tonight with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, during the summer general election, as you'll remember, we saw pro-Gaza independent candidates overturning often almost enormous Labour majorities, tapping into frustrations among many local Muslim voters with the political establishment and with what's going on in Gaza. A clear sign of growing discontent. Well, last week we saw a group of cross-party politicians get this, largely from the Labour Party, launch a campaign to build a new airport, not in some region of England, not at Heathrow, but in Pakistan-controlled Kashmir. The campaign, launched by Bedford's Labour MP Mohammed Yassin, called for better air links to the city of Mirpur because British Kashmiris were put off from visiting due to the 80-mile drive from Islamabad. And now there's a new fund that's been launched, pledging £1 million to activist Muslim charities. Their aim to track and monitor Islamophobia. In our prisons, meanwhile, things are just as concerning. Fresh reports from the Times today suggest that inmates who refuse to join radical Islamist gangs are being forced into segregation units for their own safety. Divisions are clearly becoming deeper in our society. So tonight I'm asking, is sectarianism on the rise here in the UK? And if so, what on earth should we be doing about it? And I'm joined now by national security and counter-terrorism expert Anthony Glees. Anthony, what's your assessment of what is actually happening in the country today? When we look at what we saw at the general election last year, we've got a number of candidates now clearly campaigning on sectarian lines. I've just mentioned what's going on in the prisons. I've mentioned the way in which we've got members of parliament lobbying for airports in other countries rather than talking about what's going on here in Britain. What's your assessment of the rise of sectarianism and the growing threat that it's posing to our society?
Well, it's a very specific threat, and I think it's a specific threat we should take very seriously. I don't believe it is being taken as seriously as it should be, and the story in the Times alerts us to the fact that Lord Timmerson, the prisons minister, may need to take some rather urgent action if they're not actually to be race riots in our prison. Now, the backstory here is the fact that in two of our most important prisons, Islamist terrorists who have been convicted, obviously, and are serving their time, are segregated from other prisoners. But that has not meant that they're not able to influence other prisoners, particularly Muslim prisoners. And Ian Atchison, very senior figure, professor, but a been former prison governor, knows this stuff inside out, has made it absolutely clear that whereas segregating people in prison was meant to stop the further radicalization of prisoners, and because they were in prison, it was considered no longer necessary for MI5 or the counter-terrorist police to be involved in what was going on in prison. We've got a situation now where Islamist gangs are being formed, where they are able to recruit and radicalize prisoners who may not have had any great urgency to become Islamists in any way, and that at the same time, the increase in far-right neo-Nazi prisoners is leading to a situation where in maximum security prisons, it is perfectly possible that the two sides will start fighting each other. So what's important is, first of all, to get MI5 to keep and the counter-terrorist police to keep an eye on the things that are actually going on in our prisons right now. And secondly, to realise that prisoners are, in fact, a source of future extremism. Indeed, a number of terrorist attacks in the past few years have been caused by prisoners out on day release. I mean, the Fishmongers Hall attack is a notorious example of that. So we're dropping our guard, Matthew. That's the point.
So if I can just ask, so we've got this sort of hotbed of extremism going on within our prison system, but we've also clearly got evidence that actually the same kind of segregation, sectarianism is playing out in British society. We have politicians now campaigning explicitly on racial, religious lines. We've got MPs that are campaigning for pretty factional interests among constituents who are concerned about issues in Pakistan rather than Britain. We've also, in recent weeks, had this suggestion from one professor, an expert in civil wars, saying that actually a lot of the conditions required for conflict are pretty visible in Britain. I mean, on the one hand, you want to think a lot of this stuff is sensational, but then on the other hand, you're watching what is happening in Britain and you're thinking, well, a lot of ingredients seem to be there for this kind of civil conflict. I mean, am I going too far with this, Anthony? What's your assessment of that?
Well, I mean, you're in a sense the expert here, as somebody who's traced the rise of these sorts of issues for many years. And of course, I've been looking at this ever since 1999 and writing about it. I think in the case of prisoners, the people to whom Ian Atchison and the Times are drawing our attention, you're dealing with people with a track record of extremism, and they will come out of prison in due course. And what are they going to do when they come out of prison? That's a really big question, because, I'm not a supporter of the death penalty, but we don't have the death penalty. And therefore, people who have committed appalling murders, like the murder of drummer Lee Rigby, for example, will come out of prison one day. And we know that they're considered to be icons. The very evil terrorists in our jails are considered to be icons. I think there's a very simple solution here, which is that if you are in this country, you play by the rules of this country, full stop. And I think those MPs that made a case for an airport to take people to Kashmir, I think that is very unwise. And,
OK, well, thank you, Anthony, for your thoughts this evening. I just want to bring in the thoughts from my panel, former spokesman for Reform UK, Goodwin, and former Labour advisor, James Schneider. Goodwin, Anthony there saying, actually, we do have a problem within our prison system. You can clearly see the sort of seeds of future extremism, but also I think that's mirrored by some of the things we're seeing in British society. We've got MPs there campaigning for airports in Pakistan, sectarianism at local elections, national elections. What's your take of this?
Absolutely. We have this. There are people who are campaigning on religiously sectarian issues in British politics. That's true. But going back to the prison situation, I think what's the most concerning thing about the report, on reading it, is that prison officers did not stop the creation of Sharia courts within prisons because they were frightened of being accused of being Islamophobic. Yeah. Well, no.
It's exactly what we saw.
Prisons,
it's what we saw with the rape gangs.
This is absolutely ridiculous, and it's the same. It's the same fear. It's the same. The way that society has got so frightened of being straight and believing in the idea of equality before the law, that they are frightened of being accused of bad things, bad thinking, and allowing appalling carry on within our prison system. And though in the past, they used to say, if you were a bad thief, you go to prison and you learn to be a much better thief because you've got very experienced robbers around you. Now, if you're a bad extremist, you learn to be a much greater extremist because of the people in jail around you. And this seems to be happening. Now, the question is, are they...
Schneider, just to quickly bring in James, what's your read on this? Because we clearly have a very serious growing problem with sectarianism in this country.
No, absolutely absurd. Let's take the two things.
Seriously?
Yeah, of course. What you're saying is completely feverish and divorced from reality.
Do you think we should be having MPs campaigning for airports in Pakistan?
I don't know how they were campaigning for it. The first I heard about it was you telling me about it in the ad break.
But yet you still think it's absurd.
I don't think that's sectarianism. What is the definition of sectarianism? And you're saying that the MPs who were elected in part on a platform of opposing Britain's role in the war crimes in Gaza are being sectarian. That's not the definition of sectarianism. I also am opposed to Britain's role, our government's role in the war crimes in Gaza. So are many other people in the country.
On the one hand,
millions of other people in the country.
40% of Muslims, according to the recent poll, say that they don't believe that Hamas murdered Jews on October the 7th. Yes, that's a real issue, and that is impossible to even comprehend.
So I haven't seen that poll, and that sounds completely preposterous.
Well, it just came out last week.
Fine, but as I say, I haven't seen it, and it sounds completely preposterous.
It's pretty in line.
It's not new. These attitudes have been going for a long time.
Don, the fact that some people will have attitudes we don't like. You both have attitudes I don't like. I have attitudes that you don't like, right? That's not a sign that we're sitting here able to have a discussion, right? It's not a sign that we have a fragmented society. Likewise, I ran one of the campaigns of one of the independents, Jeremy Corbyn, who was elected as an independent. Part of his appeal, of course, he's got a very wide appeal on a whole range of issues. Part of the appeal is that he's always stood up for justice at home and abroad, including in Palestine. That's not a sectarian thing. It's not a sectarian thing. That we should be pleased that people coming from their communities stand up for the values that the communities espouse and win elections on that basis, challenging the political class. I thought you were all in favour of this sort of thing.
Well, let's continue that debate. We certainly will. Sectarianism, of course, is putting factional interests ahead of national interests. Now, after the break, earlier today, an anti-abortion campaigner was convicted of breaching a buffer zone outside an abortion clinic, despite having gained support from the US State Department. You'll have heard about this case, I'm sure. Fellow campaigner Isabel Vaughan-Spruce, who was in court for that landmark ruling today, joins us live in a couple of minutes. You don't want to miss this. See you shortly.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
After some very strong winds in recent days in the Canaries, things looking a little calmer as we head into next week. Plenty of sunshine over the central Med. There's a weather front approaching Madeira. That'll bring some rain later on through the weekends. Plenty of showers over northern Spain on Saturday, but much of the south of Spain dry and sunny. Some of those showers could affect Barcelona. Plenty of showers across Greece and Turkey as well. Quite a sunny Saturday for Italy. Temperatures rising in Barcelona by Sunday before turning colder next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation Tonight with me, Matt Goodwin, right here on GB News. Now, anti-abortion campaigner Livia Tisichebolt finds herself at the centre of a US free speech row after she was found guilty of breaching a buffer zone outside a Bournemouth abortion clinic. You probably heard about this case. The 64-year-old who held a sign saying, "Here to talk if you want," near the clinic in March last year was sentenced to a 2-year condition charge after breaking a public spaces protection order on 2 occasions. Her case drew international attention, with the US State Department urging the UK to protect free expression. Indeed, J.D. Vance himself referenced the case. A fellow pro-life campaigner, Isabel Vaughan-Spruce, has already won a payout and apology after being arrested twice for silently praying outside an abortion clinic in Kings Norton, Birmingham. She has also won support from US Congress and has recently lodged a harassment complaint against West Midlands Police, as she is allegedly still subject to regular police harassment. Well, we now welcome Isabel to the show, who is in court for this landmark ruling today. Isabel, just tell us, if you can, what happened in court today.
So as you've explained, retired Lady Livia Tisichebolt was charged with breaching the PSPO, the Public Space Protection Order buffer zone around Bournemouth abortion facility. She was holding a sign that said, "Here to talk if you want." Now, she admits that she did have conversations with people, although to the best of her knowledge, not with anyone using the abortion facility. She was just simply offering to talk to anyone who wanted to talk to her. And it was only when people approached her that she would engage in any kind of conversation. But she was charged today with breaching the PSPO. And as you said, she was given a conditional discharge and also ordered to pay £20,000 for the costs of the prosecution. So really concerning. And I just found it deeply saddening that a consensual conversation on a public street has now been criminalised in a British court.
And Isabel, what do you think this is telling us about the wider debate over free speech and free expression? We'll come to your case in a moment. We know, obviously, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump have been watching these cases very closely. I mean, what is this? There's a more profound point playing out here, isn't there?
There isn't, and I find it particularly frustrating that now our friends in the US have already tried to help us see, the problems of continuing down this road of censorship. But the authorities seem resolute on destroying our nation's freedoms for the sake of their own ideology. And we're seeing this whether it's with council officers or police or even in the judiciary system. And it's really concerning.
Well, we've also got the rise of non-crime hate incidents. We've got new definitions of Islamophobia, which are clearly designed to shut down debate. We've got, obviously, the online safety bill. We've got these growing restrictions on free speech, free expression. I mean, for you, what do you think this is telling us about the direction of Britain more generally? Because I find it rather striking that it's our cousins in America who are drawing attention to these cases rather than people here in Britain. I mean, what do you think this is really being driven by within the establishment? What's behind all of this?
It's very hard for me to know what's at the root of it. Obviously, as a Christian, I do think there's a certain spiritual element to it, which I'm sure some people might disagree with. But those people who are prepared to stand firm are really having to face the brunt of, a two-tier police system and, whether that's, like I say, that's also gone into the council and things as well in Bournemouth. Most people aren't prepared to have their livelihoods, their reputation, their relationships affected in these ways. And so they're just having to resort to be second-class citizens and to be treated in a different way to other people simply because maybe they're a Christian or maybe they hold pro-life views, which are still very mainstream views in our society. People who might be members of Christians or Catholic churches in our society are now feeling that, like I say, that there's some kind of social pariah.
And just tell us a bit, if you can, about your case, because I think viewers are going to be really interested to hear a bit about that.
So it started right back in 2022. I was arrested in an abortion centre buffer zone, PSPO buffer zone in Birmingham, for simply silently praying in my head. I went to court. I was completely acquitted in court. And yet 2 or 3 weeks later, I was rearrested for exactly the same thing, for silently praying. And for those who say that wasn't the reason, the police officer actually told me that my prayers were an offence. I reminded him that they were silent prayers in my head, imperceptible. I had no Bible or rosary beads. I had no leaflets, no posters. I wasn't interacting with anyone. Yet, as I say, I was rearrested again and had to wait 6 months before that case was dropped. But even since then, police were coming out, giving me tickets, telling me I was going to be fined and that I was breaching the zone. In the end, I had to make a claim against the police for unlawful arrest, for false imprisonment and assault. And I was awarded an out-of-court settlement for £13,000. And I finally thought that was the end of it. But still since then, week after week after week, the police have been coming out. And more recently, they've been telling me that it isn't my prayers that are now the issue, but just who I am. That knowing who I am means that I'm causing someone else harassment. Well, that's particularly concerning because harassment isn't just banned in abortion centre buffer zones. Harassment is rightly banned across the UK anywhere. So if just knowing who I am is causing people harassment, then there's simply nowhere left for me to go in public. Am I to stay at home? And then is that harassment for people I live with? That's how ludicrous it's becoming.
Well, we should say we did reach out to West Midlands Police for comment and we've yet to receive one. Just give us a sense, if you can, as to how international this is becoming. People in America and elsewhere watching your case closely and supporting you. Just give us a sense of the global reach of this.
I've certainly had a lot of people reaching out to me from around the world. And interestingly, not just people who might share my own pro-life beliefs or my own Christian faith, but people who say and make a point of saying, I don't share these beliefs, but I do share your concern at not being able to silently pray in public or hold consensual conversations, as in the case of Livia Tisici-Bolt. And it's nice that people are recognising these infringements on our fundamental freedoms, but it's a shame that it's often people overseas who are pointing them out to me, or members of the public who just feel frustrated that their voices aren't being heard by those who can really make a difference.
Absolutely. Well, Isabel, thank you for joining us tonight and shining light on this crucial issue that is facing our country and, of course, our long and proud tradition of free speech and free expression, which increasingly seems to be under threat across the board. Now, after the break, Britain's Wokest Council have excelled themselves as they have pushed staff to complete a white privilege test. Yes, you heard that right. If you've never been stopped and searched, if English is your first language, you could be part of the problem. We'll look at the test in a couple of minutes. See you shortly.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The sunny skies that many of us have had through this week will continue through the weekend, but then so will that slightly frustrating wind. It's all thanks to high pressure sitting to the north, bringing the settled weather, bringing the sunshine, but the winds go clockwise around high pressure, so drawing in some cooler air from the North Sea, and that will also generate a little bit of mist and low cloud. That's going to spill in through the night, making for a fairly grey start to Saturday across the Midlands, eastern England and eastern Scotland. It'll be a chilly start as well, certainly through some sheltered glens. We'll have a frost maybe down to -3 or -4, +3, +4 in most towns and cities. It will be a drab start over the East Midlands, much of eastern England and eastern Scotland, and this ha may well stick around for a good chunk of the day on the coast, but inland it should clear away. Chilly start, yes, as I mentioned, a touch of frost, but a cracking day on the west coast of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine again for Northern Ireland, West Wales, Northwest England, Southwest England too, but it will be a cloudy start for parts of the Midlands and eastern England. Pretty hopeful that mist and low cloud will break up pretty sharply through the morning, so that certainly by late morning it's sunny almost everywhere, just with the potential for some of this mist and low cloud to stick to some North Sea coast with that breeze coming in. Now that breeze will have an impact on the day. It'll look fine and sunny, it'll look quite warm, but it'll feel cooler because of that breeze. We should still get to 18, 19, perhaps even 20 across the south, but that wind will make it feel fresher. Those North Sea coasts, some places are going to stick in single digits, and that wind will really make it feel quite fresh. That breeze is still there across eastern Scotland and the Northern Isles on Sunday. Again, some ha at times, but again, for most places, Sunday's another cracking day. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures are touched down, but the winds are a little bit lighter on Sunday. The winds are easing through next week, and the sun, for most of us, will continue to shine.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
It's a surprise.
confused?
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to State of the Nation tonight with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, is Westminster Council Britain's wokest council? The flagship Labour council is telling staff, get this, to undergo a privilege test as part of its efforts to combat unconscious bias against ethnic minorities. The test awards points based on various factors, including whether parents read to you as a child, guilty, if you drive a new car, guilty, or shop at Waitrose, guilty. Other factors that would lead to you scoring very privileged on a test include being a white male, guilty, guilty. Never having been stopped and searched by police, guilty. Let's get the thoughts from my panel tonight about this crazy test. Former spokesman for Reform UK, Goodwin, and former Labour advisor, James Schneider. Now, I'm going to just, before I come to you, Goodwin, I'm going to just look at some of the items on this test because they are something else. My parents or guardians read to me when I was a child.
Yes.
Yes. OK. I have to take annual leave for my religious holidays.
I would if I were religious, but I'm not religious.
I have had to take annual leave for my holidays. Easter, for example.
English is my first language.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Guilty. I drive a new car.
Don't drive.
No.
That's just me. Uh-oh. I have a designer handbag, James Schneider.
I'm afraid not.
Are you sure?
Dozens of them under the bed.
Goodwin?
No.
I feel confident that someone in my close circle would be able to financially help if I was going through a financial hardship.
Yes.
I've been in that position and it's happened.
I think we are all very guilty. And just a couple more. I live in rented accommodation?
Yes.
Yes.
OK. I see members of my race, ethnic group, gender or sexual orientation negatively portrayed on TV.
Yes.
Yes. Think of adolescents.
White boys and adolescents, indeed. I have an illness or disability?
No. Probably dozens, but I don't know what they are.
And just last, I think twice about calling the police when trouble occurs.
Depends.
You would, though?
I haven't in the past.
Well, these are all items on this white privilege test. Now, Goodwin, clearly, we've talked a lot about this, the politicisation of the public sector, the ongoing wokeification. I think I've just made that word up. I should trademark that, wokeification. What on earth is going on? Why should we care about people's white privilege in Westminster?
It's another tick box exercise. And the question is, what is the result of this when they get their results and they discover that, I think in the case of Westminster, actually significantly more than the population of Westminster that are of a certain ethnic minorities already work for the council, so that is obviously not going to happen. But broadly, what is it for? What's going to be the results? Is it going to make life better, or is it just going to increase divisions within the workforce?
James, what's it for? Why are we doing these tests in local government?
I don't think it's about divisions. I mean, look, I didn't do the test and I don't work in local government. I'm not an HR person. But
do you shop at Waitrose?
Not really, no. Lidl is actually my preferred supermarket. No, honestly.
This guy shops at Waitrose.
I shop at the Lidl in Finsbury Park. I call it the Cathedral. It's the best place.
Where'd you get your hummus from?
Lidl in Finsbury Park. They've got honestly, Lidl has a fantastic selection of hummus with special toppings.
So why are local councils jamming this stuff down everybody's throats?
I don't think this is... I think you are overstating. This isn't jamming down throats. This is for hiring managers. People are hiring to have an idea of whether their natural assumptions about the world are the same as the people that they're going to be hiring. Which, speaking as someone who is reasonably or well above averagely privileged on this test thing, seems to be no bad thing if I'm making hires that I'm aware that people have different life experiences, and I should be aware of that. That doesn't seem to be particularly frightening. Then there's another element to it from the story that I read, which is they're trying to make sure that the senior leadership of the council's executive, etc., more represents the people, the demographics of the population, which seems to be a perfectly sensible thing.
Why don't we value competence over identity? What happens to actually the most competent person gets the job?
And I think what you would see, if you were getting the most competent people getting the job overall in the aggregate, is that it would represent the community. You'd have something that is representative of the community, because there's nothing more innately competent about white men than black women or anything else. So I think if you were having a fair system and one which is broadly representative, you would be getting the most competent people in.
Can I ask you a very specific question? Why in this test is being a white male considered worse than being a member of a minority group? 3 times worse. Why is that? That is anti-white racism, isn't it?
It's not anti-white racism, but I don't know why you're asking me. The first time I saw the test was, us doing it now. I certainly didn't.
No, but I'm asking, does it not trouble you? This is not really where a unified, integrated society should be going. Much like we've seen in the justice system, if you're white, straight, male, Christian, you are treated, or at least the Sentencing Council wanted you to be treated, differently from whether you are transgender or member of a racial, ethnic, gender minority group. Our society is moving in the wrong direction.
If you look at sentencing, if you look at arrests, all of this disproportionately skews against black and brown people.
The white male question. Answer the white male question.
But what is the white male question? I think it should have the points? This is a silly test. This is not something which I have come in here proposing, saying that we should.
Gawain, it's not a silly test, is it? It's a test for local government. It's a test for a public institution.
This particular test is frankly silly, but that doesn't mean it's not being used. Every single member who works for the council has to do it.
There isn't a class question in there, which to me seems to be a problem.
Can we work out what? Do we actually know what class is?
Shopping at Waitrose, that's a class question.
Well, that's a sort of taste question. I mean, if we want to be Bourdieu, it's a habitus question.
And it depends where you live. If you live near to a Waitrose rather than near to a Lidl, you probably go to the Waitrose more often than you do the Lidl.
But we should be concerned about this, right? But anyway, the debate is going to go on. You can do the test online. Up next is Patrick Christis. Patrick, what have you got on your show this evening?
Yes, hello everybody, and hello to my wonderful studio audience. Fantastic. This is the best way to start your Friday night. We are going to be doing the absolute lot of it here for the next 2 hours. As you can see, I've got my wonderful panel with me, Barry Gardner, Miriam Case, Christo Fufas and JJ Anasobi. We're going to be having a look at the fact that everybody's bills have gone up. How do you all feel about that? Terrible stuff, terrible stuff. We're going to be touching as well, aren't we, on the fact that we appear to be letting jihadis out of prison now. Do you think anyone can be de-radicalised? No? No. Well, you can see they're fired up and ready to go. So am I. I'll see you in just a couple of minutes.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The sunny skies that many of us have had through this week will continue through the weekend, but then so will that slightly frustrating wind. It's all thanks to high pressure sitting to the north, bringing the settled weather, bringing the sunshine, but the winds go clockwise around high pressure, so drawing in some cooler air from the North Sea, and that will also generate a little bit of mist and low cloud. That's going to spill in through the night, making for a fairly grey start to Saturday across the Midlands, eastern England and eastern Scotland. It'll be a chilly start as well, certainly through some sheltered glens. We'll have a frost maybe down to -3 or -4, +3, +4 in most towns and cities. It will be a drab start over the East Midlands, much of eastern England and eastern Scotland, and this may well stick around for a good chunk of the day on the coast, but inland it should clear away. Chilly start, yes, as I mentioned, a touch of frost, but a cracking day on the west coast of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine again for Northern Ireland, West Wales, Northwest England, Southwest England too, but it will be a cloudy start for parts of the Midlands and eastern England. pretty hopeful that mist and low cloud will break up pretty sharply through the morning, so that certainly by late morning it's sunny almost everywhere, just with the potential for some of this mist and low cloud to stick to some North Sea coast with that breeze coming in. Now that breeze will have an impact on the day. It'll look fine and sunny, it'll look quite warm, but it'll feel cooler because of that breeze. We should still get to 18, 19, perhaps even 20 across the south, but that wind will make it feel fresher. Those North Sea coasts, some places are going to stick in single digits, and that wind will really make it feel quite fresh. That breeze is still there across eastern Scotland and the Northern Isles on Sunday. Again, some har at times, but again, for most places, Sunday's another cracking day. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures are touched down, but the winds are a little bit lighter on Sunday. The winds are easing through next week, and the sun, for most of us, will continue to shine.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience.